it to a great end result. But there's something really fun that happens at the beginning of a performance with an orchestra conductor. Everybody's warming up their instruments and it's loud, and I think it is the best description of the word cacophony that you could ever use. I like to use big words sometimes, and there's only 2 times I've ever used the word cacophony in a well-stated way, and one of it has to do with that noise where all the instruments are warming up, and for some reason they don't confuse each other. They can really hear the tuning of their own instrument. The only other time I used that word where it really had meaning was on the island of Bali in the morning. There were the strangest bird songs, and they were all singing at the same time in different ways, but they were not recognizable to an ear that had lived a rather shallow experience. I had never had a stamp on my passport before that time. So the conductor has a thing. You know what this is called? You would be right, except it's a paintbrush. I had to look it up because I didn't know. But it's a baton, and I found it in an art supply thing that I never ever use. But I think it's just perfect. It is. It's just perfect. And I'm left-handed, so it's hard for me to hold it in my right hand, but I think they always hold it in their right hand. Is that correct? Because the left hand does something else. There we have a lot of musicians here. Oh, look, she knows how to do this. But there's this great thing that happens. All the instruments are making all that racket. And then suddenly the conductor gets the baton and goes, silence. Everybody gets completely quiet. And when you're there, when you're waiting for the symphony orchestra to begin playing, your heart's just pitter-pattering. It's the silence is almost the best part. And then you watch and the conductor starts making these movements. And through a tool, he synchronizes many, many players. The audience sits in delicious anticipation. And we wait. And suddenly, there's this gorgeous experience of music. I like a tool. We teach about spiritual tools, and I'm going to tell you one more thing. When I look at that picture of my beloved up there, I feel sure that he thought he had a tool that was magical, and that he was experiencing in his own being some kind of symphony, because you could see how he felt. Even from behind him, you can see that he was oneing with some power that was greater than he was, that he is. This power of the ocean on a rugged day. And so in honor of my beloved, I named the title of my message is A Great Orchestrator, and the quotation from Dr. Ernest Holmes that I stumbled upon so that this could all come together came from This Thing Called You. And Dr. Holmes, who is the founder of this teaching, said, if at all times you are seeking inwardly to be aware of the divine presence, you will find it easier and easier to direct the law of life for definite purposes. The more we practice, the more skilled we become, the more tools we have that we can use, the easier and easier it becomes to live your life. See, my husband understood that, and he lived his life in alignment with all of that, and in perfect alignment with these principles that I have to name, and I have to study, and I have to practice, and then I like to teach them. And he just got it. And the gift he had was he was not afraid to make mistakes. He understood the law of cause and effect. And when you make a bad decision and there's a repercussion from a decision, it just would give him more information. And then it would not limit his choices. it would expand his creativity so that he could see more choices, and he would grow and learn even from his mistakes, even when they annoyed me. I wasn't always happy about some of those choices, right? So he lived these principles, and this was never his religion. Right? He would come. He had a pew where he would sit all the time, or he had a chair that was his. But he had this uncanny ability to sense the presence of God. And Dr. Ernest Holmes often says to us that the one who can sense the presence is the one that can then align to the greatest power. That we have that relationship. We understand it's not my power. It's not how good my tool is. It's about how we learn that there is a power. There's something in this universe and intelligence that's greater than we are. Now, Hugh, my beloved, it's really weird. There's a whole bunch of you never met him. That's a funny thought to me. And he's laughing right now. You know that. He was also a poet. He was a big, burly biker, scared a lot of people, including Reverend Clyde for a while. Am I right? All right. All right. And then they fell in love, and he used to call Clyde son, and Clyde loved that. My husband was a poet, so he would tell me that the way he meditated was on the back of his Harley Davidson. And one day he wrote this poem. I'm only going to read you a stanza of it, but let me ask you to listen to the way a big burly biker can feel one with God and find the words to use it, to say it. Familiar grip under my hands, excitement in my heart. It never ends, it mellows like fine wine. Tree-lined canyons, my task. Rhythmic dance with the road, the elegant power of my steed challenges all. Wind in my face, sun lights my path, my spirit soars. A big burly biker who could find words to suggest there's a presence that we can all one with. So I lived with this man, and what a blessing. Some days it's a blessing to live with a poet. There's also the starving poet. There were also times where, in order to take our what do you call it, that he was sitting on, our ice chest, the cooler. In order to get our cooler up there, sometimes we had to cash in aluminum cans for gas money. It was before we had discovered our rhythm and the way we can shift our prosperity consciousness to be unlimited. So I'm blessed to have those experiences, and with that person, I, shared that mutual love at the coastline, and we had adventures. Boy, did we have adventures, and a bunch of kids. And I just like to remind you that it's not that we didn't have problems. One time I was teaching a class, the first class I taught after he made his transition, and a woman in that class said to me, "Your life is so enchanted. You've had such an enchanted life. Now that he's gone, you have more credibility." And I thought, wow, do people think I don't suffer? Man, I can suffer. I'm human, Ministers suffer too. And so it's not that we didn't have problems, it's that we had ways of understanding and reminding each other. What's really nice in relationship is that you don't always have problems at the same time. You take turns, right? We just never quit at the same time, so we stayed married for a lot of decades. Right? But you got problems. And the surfer in him would always tell me when I was going through something scary, he'd say, just ride the wave. Figure out how to ride the wave. It will carry you to the next place, right? Problems come and problems go. The Bible reminds us it came to pass. Oh, dozens of times it's written. And it came to pass. So I learned those things through, staying in relationship. And he also helped me learn to dream. I don't think I was like a lot of you. You can be afraid to get your hopes up. If you don't expect too much, you won't be disappointed, and that sometimes would be my philosophy, and he would argue with me. He would say, oh, no, 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 expect greater things to happen. And he caused me to want to imagine beyond what was the normal. So things happen. Tragic things happen. And those things carve us out and reshape us. And we can become better people because we have moved through real experiences. But you can't hang on to all that suffering. At some point, we're offered almost like a clean slate that you can let go. You can give it to God, and you can begin again. So I'm here today because I wanted to talk to you about becoming a great orchestrator in your own life with all of those sweet lessons. In my studies, I've met many poets and mystics that excite me as much as my husband's poetry. One of my favorites is Emma Curtis Hopkins. Most people who know me at all know I have a passion for Emma. Emma is a Christian mystic, and she writes very poetically, and she is difficult to understand. I noticed that the mystics, much like the writing A Course in Miracles, there's a lot of double negatives in there. There's a lot of poetic things that are clunky, hard to understand. You have to reason with it. But that's where it becomes sacred, in the way it pulls you out of your head and to where you are contemplating in a broader, more spiritual perspective. And Emma Curtis Hopkins is that gorgeous. When I talk about her being poetic, you just can't pick up the book and think you're reading poetry, that's for sure. But that's one of those favorite quotes I say, this is Emma, every night of my life, before I close my eyes in slumber, while God is swelling me with possibility, every night I choose. Right? So we choose. We find the tools we want to use. We have instruments. We orchestrate our lives. I love the way that Emma Curtis Hopkins always spoke about. One of my favorite quotes is, "There's a power for good in the universe, and you can use it." She used to say, as much as you want that good, your good wants you. And so many sweet little sayings like that. Listen to this one. Emma said, and this is the beginning of the second chapter of this book. It's got a long title. In Roots, you have to read it. I'll just tell you that. She says, she starts with a question. Is there a conviction of good belonging to you now in your own mind? Is there a conviction of good right now in your own mind? And she says, well, that is an omnipresent conviction. It's in everybody's mind. Everything and everybody believes in the same way, but you will notice that the instant you acknowledge that there is a good for you, which you ought to have, your thought then arises within your mind that you do not have that good that belongs to you that you desire to have right now. This is a positive use of what the ancient metaphysicians used to call denials. So there's a good for me and I ought to have it. Why the hell isn't it here? Where is it? Where is it? So we ask that question. You feel, she says, in that recognition that that good is absent from you. Now that was not your first thought. I even heard somebody over here go, there's a good for me and I ought to have it. But she reminds us that this following idea is that we are capable of having a belief that our good can be absent from us. This is known as the conviction of absence. And then I'll go towards the end of that paragraph. She says, thus, therefore, she's saying, it seems that the silence of your mind with respect to good is accountable for all the appearances in your life of what is not good. Oh, this is a lot to think about. When we see something that looks not good, ain't hard to do lately, unless you just don't watch TV or turn on the internet. When we see these appearances of things that frighten us or worry us or the problems going on in our own families, if you are seeing the appearance of what is not good, it is because you have been silent in your mind, that you are not thinking about the presence of good, that you are not speaking those words. There is a silence that is accountable for the not good that you do think you see. So I know it's twisted, but that's what the poets do. They take things and they make you sit with it for a minute. I love Emma. Declare the good that you ought to have. Declare it, claim it, orchestrate it, describe it, think about it. Be the orchestrator in your own life. Dare to imagine things. So from the mystics to the poets to the scientists, I wanted to talk a minute about Bruce Lipton, who comes to us from that more scientific corner of the world. He's not a poet and he's not a mystic. He is best known for that book in everybody's library, The Biology of Belief. It's an old book. It's not a new book. And Bruce Lipton does this work that he calls epigenetic research. He was a speaker one year when I went up to Asilomar for our summer conference, a beautiful week-long retreat. And his theories are all in that, what he calls the energy of psychology, the idea of the different vibrational levels we carry in us. You know, when something goes wrong with another human being, they say that before our words, that other person has felt our energy. So there's an energetic in the way that we connect with each other. And Bruce Lipton's ideas are just in sync with what we teach in this philosophy, the science of mind. How you think and perceive reality is how we create in our lives. So the idea that what you think and what you believe, these truths, or the perceptions, your perceptions show up in your health. They show up in our relationships. They show up in our finances in every way. So where we are blocked or limited, that's where we could pay attention. Focus in on the spiritual truths that we would like to incorporate into our daily living. So well before quantum physics was talked about in the way that we use it now. Before Bruce Lipton and before Deepak Chopra and before Ken Wilber and all the great scientists that are giving us stuff with substance that marry science and spirituality, Ernest Holmes said these words long ago. We are surrounded by a law of mind which acts on our thought. This is the security of our faith. This is the answer to our prayers. It is flowing through us even as it flows around us. It is creative and it operates in everything we do. It cannot be limited or restricted or taken away from you. All of us have equal access to it. But we get there as we begin to open our minds to it, as we are willing to sit and face the almighty power innate in the ocean itself and see that we are called to orchestrate our own lives. So Lipton calls it energy psychology, empowered genetics, and he's talking to us about an age-old theme that really matters in New Thought and in this spiritual community, and that is body-mind connection. Body, mind, and soul are as seen in this beautiful wholeness as one. Here's a quote from Bruce Lipton. Through consciousness, our minds have the power to change our planet and ourselves. It is time that we heed the wisdom of those nation's first peoples. It is time for us to channel our own consciousness and spirit and tend to this beautiful garden earth. Change your thinking and you'll change your life. Be in charge of directing the details of this great symphony you are living. Now, every now and then, I feel the need or an urgency to remind us, to call us back to the logic of this teaching. This is not magic. This is not a wand to perform magic. If Rod could pull a rabbit out of his hat, that would be a great magic trick. I should have asked you to do that. That would have been fun. But he's not pulling a rabbit out of nothing. You know, that kind of magic is sleight of hand, or the way a skilled person knows how to distract our attention. We're talking about the logic of life, the way the farmer casts seed into the ground, knowing that there is a law of growth that is going to produce a harvest. Those are the words of Ernest Holmes. He said, in the same way that a farmer would cast seed and trust there's going to be a harvest, in the same way, we must learn to cast our own creative ideas of good into the field of our own mind. So imagine you're sitting at the edge of the ocean with a gorgeous view, and you're conducting this gorgeous symphony, feeling the power and the majesty of that connection with the holy of the most holies, Spirit itself. Love, the greatest force in the universe. So I study principle. My husband lived it. I know that there's love and there's law, there's presence and there's action, there's spiritual tools. And all we ever have to do is to tap into the power that's already there. Find your power, use it, and orchestrate your very own life. That's what I wanted to say. Oh, take a nice deep and holy breath. And for a short while, we will turn within. And we will speak these words in the same way that the mystics and the poets and the great thinkers of all ages have spoken powerful words of prayer. We take the images and the ideas of sitting somewhere in nature where we can sense the power all around us, where we can feel the essence of God as a presence, For I know that there is no place where God is not. There is simply no place where God could be limited or held down or held back. For the fullness of the intelligence in this universe that is the wisdom of life itself is ever flowing. And it flows freely. And it moves ceaselessly. That even the way that the human body functions to keep us alive in this miraculous nature of life, this too is evidence of the presence of God. One creator of all life. One mind, one infinite spirit that has thought us all into being. There's only that one mind, and that mind is perfect, and that mind is God's mind, and it is our mind right now. And so these words empower us in the way that they restore memory into the cells of our physical body, so that anything that might appear to ail us is healed. It is rearranged, it is reconfigured, as if there is a miraculous orchestrator that is putting the demand on this rearrangement so that the perfection within us can be revealed. And so I know we are healed as we speak these words, as we embody these truths, as we recognize that there is a great orchestrator and we are co-creating, co-orchestrating the details of our own lives. And we do have tools and we are skilled, and some of us know and understand principle and can read the mystics, and others of us prefer to meditate on the back of a motorcycle. And all of it is the same, for there is only one mind, one infinite source of all good. And so we rest in this beautiful, pure knowing that there is good on this planet. And if we are in a place where we cannot recognize good, then we remind ourselves. We pick up our instrument, we tap and hear the sound that brings us back to our own center, that grounds us in truth, that it reestablishes an equilibrium where we have balance and we can walk in a kooky world where we can find our path that is calm and serene and straight, and that we are supported and we are sourced, and we know that, we recognize that, we open ourselves to receive. And so we become vessels. We become vessels in which we simply open ourselves to receive the grace of God, knowing that that infinite giving on the part of the divine, that givingness of Spirit itself, is the way that grace streams into our lives. And so any of the predicaments we may face, the challenges, the sadness, the grieving, we can know that there too is the presence of God holding us sweetly, carrying us through the trials, and that we simply need to look again at what it means to ride the wave, to allow the circumstances to come and to go because they come to pass. We are equipped this day, and I know therefore that this spiritual community is blessed, that the individuals that can hear the words of this prayer are blessed by their willingness, by our willingness to receive and to say yes to God. So we say yes to God. We say thank you, life. Thank you, infinite Spirit. How grateful we are for all that we have and all that we've experienced, for all the love we have shared and the adventures we have been on. And there are more. So I release the words of this prayer into the divine law, knowing indeed it is done, and so it is.
grateful, grateful for all the love that I have. I am so grateful, grateful, grateful for all the love that I have. Everywhere I look and every face I see is love reflected, shining back to me. I just give thanks for all these simple things, the joy and peace that gratitude brings. That's why I'm grateful, grateful, grateful for all the love that I have. I am so grateful, grateful, grateful for all the love that I have.
And we are grateful, and there I am. So now's the time to celebrate the abundance of our lives and the abundance of our community. But I do want to remind you that that all the information that I go over with the announcements we have on our website wvcsl.com. You can go there to find the information, and you can also sign up for our newsletter. So we send out a weekly newsletter with all the information, so you can sign up there as well. And I also want to remind you that we have call to prayer after service. So if you'd like to pray with the practitioner, we have a practitioner up front here. You just come right up, and we'll be happy to pray with you. So now that we've made the rest of those announcements, let's remember the truth of the abundance of our lives. So let's say our giving affirmation together. I live in a consciousness of good. Divine love blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, God, and so it is.
Please rise for our last song. Oh, 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 it feels so good to be alive. Sing that with me. Oh, 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 it feels so good to be alive. I ain't thinking about my problems. I'm living now. I'm living now. And I ain't gonna worry about the future. I'm living now. I'm living now. So put your hands up if you feel like having a good time. Put your hands up if you're sharing love with all. Raise your cup if you're hopeful for tomorrow. Put your hands up if you're ready to have some fun. And sing it. Oh, 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 it feels so good to be alive. Oh, 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 it feels so good to be alive. Feels good, don't it? Feels good, don't it? Only got one life, live in the moment. Feels good, don't it? Feels good, don't it? Only got one life, live in the moment. Feels good, don't it? Feels good, don't it? Only got one life, live in the moment. Feels good, don't it? Feels good, don't it? Only got one life, live. Oh, 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 it feels so good to be alive. Oh, 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 it feels so good to be alive. One more time. Oh, 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 it feels so good to be alive. Woo!
Yes, it does feel good to be alive. So let's say our closing affirmation after me and join us for some wonderful food. So let's say the closing affirmation. I am an orchestrator of my life.
I am an orchestrator of my life.
And I expect and claim my good.
And I expect and claim my good.
And so it is.